Welcome to Grownish Women. I'm your host, Holly Teagarden. This is the podcast for women who are in the messy middle of midlife. Your kids are growing up, your hormones are doing whatever they want, and that quiet little voice is asking, okay, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And it's getting louder by the day. We talk about the stuff everybody is going through, but nobody wants to talk about. We laugh at the chaos, we sit in the hard parts, and we do it all without judgment because midlife does not come with a manual, but it does come with this podcast. Let's go. You might notice this episode landing in your feed on Monday. We're a Friday podcast. That's our rhythm. That's our thing. This is a special episode for a special day because 8 years ago today, I married Mike. I've thought a lot about what it means to choose someone, not just at the beginning when everything is like new and easy, but the years that follow when you're blending kids and households and histories and all the emotional baggage that comes with two people who have already lived whole lives before they found each other. And this episode is our most personal one yet because we're talking about the thing that almost no one talks about, what it really takes to blend a family. Not the version from the television, the real one, with the hard conversations, the moments of doubt and decision over and over again, to keep choosing each other anyway. Happy anniversary, my love. Thank you so much for being on the pod. This one's for us and for every couple doing the hard, beautiful work of building something new out of something that was broken. Happy anniversary, babe. 8
Happy
years.
anniversary.
I thought we would do this podcast because we've even talked about this before where there isn't a lot of conversation about blending families and then more specifically, even within our faith.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a blind spot. You're
Yes.
going in and you understand the divorce statistics that
Right.
yes, divorce is higher when you remarry, but nobody talks about the why. Like
Yeah.
why is that?
So the studies show that 60 to 7% of blended families ended in divorce. So when you hear that number, like, why do you think that happens?
Well, I think number one, you're not prepared.
Yeah, I would agree with
You,
that.
you as little as you're prepared for your first marriage, maybe when you're young and dumb,
Yeah.
you can figure things out. You
Yeah.
can grow, hopefully, and if you don't, you know, you follow the path of divorce eventually.
I also think people don't put their marriage first.
Well, that's another dilemma that is, I think, rampant across all marriage,
Sure.
that especially when there's kids involved, that the kids come above the marriage. It's a wrong focus,
Right.
and a lot of people get upset about that, but
It's true.
your kids are with you for a set period of time. Be that 18, 25, 30 years these
Right.
days, but they will ultimately move on and be on their own, and you're going to be left with the person that you stood at the altar with and said you were gonna love them till death do you part, look
Yes.
across the table and go, "Who
Who is
are you?
this? Yeah.
I don't know you, or we don't have anything in common anymore." And I feel like that's just such a hard part for marriage. If you don't put the focus in the right place, you end up sacrificing so much that when the things that get put in place of that are gone, then it becomes such a strong focal point that you realize you have nothing.
Well, just to keep it, just to add to that, I also think there hasn't really been good models out there. So you think about like on television, you have the Brady Bunch. Here's a story of a lovely lady, like,
Sure.
and then even Who's the Boss in a way because they were. So you have all these like models, but they're all so fake to what the reality is.
Right. Well, and even in those situations, you see, go back to the Brady Bunch. Okay,
Sure.
number one, you got Alice to
Yes.
help. But number two, you have both parents in that situation parenting equally.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know what we've experienced in our marriage and what we talked about going in is that, my kids were older, Sarah was younger, and we'd had conversations, we had talked about how we wanted to handle different things. And basically it came down to my kids are mine and
Yeah.
I'm going to lead when it comes to my kids. And for, your child, you're going to lead when it comes to your child, and I'm gonna follow and help and support in whatever way I can. And we went in that mantra of that's how we're gonna do it, and I think it was the right mantra. I think it was the right strategy, but I don't think we realized how much resentment or hurt or fill in the blank with whatever word you wanna put, whatever emotion might come along, comes with that when you disagree with things that might be going on, or even if you're in agreement, but they're being handled in a
Right.
different way. Right,
So, like, I'm just thinking because your kids were adults when we married, and Sarah was in elementary school,
right.
and she is on the spectrum with ADD and ADHD, all the acronyms. Like we were merging households, and my household already had like deep routines
Right,
built around a child with special needs.
right.
How did you figure out where you fit in without feeling like an outsider in your own home?
So I think the part of that that was easier was that while we didn't have a diagnosed ADHD or special needs,
Yeah.
we also had in my first marriage, we did follow a lot of structure.
Okay.
We had, we had regular dinner together. Every day, 5 o'clock was dinner time, and the kids knew that. We all sat at the table and we had dinner together. There was a set bedtime. There was a set bath time. There was, so we did follow schedules. So
Yeah.
from that perspective, and that wasn't as hard because I wasn't like as free flowing as, some of our other friends who are like,
Sure.
it happens when it happens. We're not those, luckily, I
That's
think
true.
we knew that going in that both of us were schedule-oriented people,
Thank goodness.
and so we knew that, and I think from that perspective, it was easy to follow that pattern, adapting to it when we were actually, married, living together,
Yeah.
experiencing it day to day, there's a little bit of shock that comes with some of the
Sure.
things, that come with autism, and you just learn and you adapt, and I'm a pretty adaptable person, so I think that also helped in some of these scenarios, but I just tried to follow your lead. You
Yeah.
knew what was best. I tried to give my
Well,
advice.
I mean, I sometimes I didn't know what was best.
Sure,
Like,
right. I mean,
it's
that's
hard.
true all the time as a parent. We're never gonna be, we're gonna do the best that we can, the
Right.
best that we think. Y Whether it's the best or not, we find out in the end whether, "Well, I missed that call," Um, we've talked about with my kids not going to public school. Like, I
Yeah.
made a decision to not send them to public school, and in retrospect, while I feel like they had a good environment in the Christian school they went to, I don't think they got a lot of the skill set that they necessarily needed to be in, larger group settings or dealing with a lot of different scenarios or things that
Yeah.
come when you're not in their classes were 8 and 7. Like that's such a tiny
Oh my
class size.
gosh.
I'm not talking
100%.
one
Right, right, right.
classroom. I'm talking the entire class.
Right.
So it's, that, and I look back at that and there were reasons why we did it, and
Right.
a lot of it leaned on our faith, and we wanted to protect our kids from being, exposed to things of the world, but in the long run, I look back and even talking with them, I think they would have probably been better served to face those challenges at that time as they were growing instead of not having that experience.
So here's what I'm just thinking out loud. The difference for us is that we didn't move into one of the other's houses. You weren't coming into my house. I wasn't coming into your house.
Right.
We were, it was our house. And I think, well, a lot of things that helped a lot of things, but it also
A lot of
hindered.
challenges with
There
that.
were a
Yeah.
lot of challenges, right? Because change all
Suck at change.
we all suck at
Right.
change and we all somewhat suck at communication.
Me more so, that we knew that
Sure.
going in. Communication has never been my strong suit. It's been something that, I have been working on since we've, started dating, and it's gotten better,
For
but
sure.
it's still a struggle. And early on, it was definitely hard because not only did yes, we combined into a new home, but, our 3-bedroom split ranch was not exactly spacious.
It
It was
isn't patient. I mean,
it
it isn't
it
now,
isn't
but
now, but
yeah,
it was enough space. Don't get
right.
me wrong, I mean,
Sure.
first world problems, right?
Sure.
Everybody had a bedroom, we had 2 daughters living with us that were, vastly different.
Yeah.
We have one at 10, I think, at
Yeah.
that time, and Sarah, confusing 2 Sarahs. My Sarah was in her early
Nice.
20s,
Yeah.
22, 23, I think.
Yeah.
So, you have this dynamic of this different world. Throw on top of that, my daughter had a couple of dogs and
I
gerbil and
We all suffer from different mental health besides you.
right,
The women, Sarah, the other Sarah, and me all have some sort of mental health thing.
right,
And so yeah, it was a rough patch.
right. It was
Specifically
difficult.
with your daughter and with my child just being like, what the fuck? I now have, someone else to air quote report to. I
Right,
think that was hard for her to see you as an authoritative figure.
right,
And for me, I know I did not handle moving in well, especially with your daughter. And I feel really bad about that. It was just like, I think in terms of helping other people, I would say if you have any kind of anxiety, OCD issues, which I do,
right.
I think it's extremely important before you start going down this path
Or any major change.
of any major change, up your dose and you up your meeting with your
Right.
therapist.
Talk
Like
talk to your therapist.
100%.
Make sure you're on the right path. Make sure you're able to deal with things. And I would say on top of that,
Pray.
well, pray, that's above everything else.
Right.
Pray. But communicate
Yes.
expectation.
So true.
Like,
We fucked up on that.
right. I
Yes.
had a certain set of expectations of what
Yes.
was going to happen. You had a different set of expectations,
Yes.
and they were drastically different.
So true.
Right? And we neither of us understood that. We both thought that the other knew
Yes.
what our expectations were, even though they had never been expressed. And I
Yes.
think that caused some resentment between us,
Yeah.
caused some difficulty because expectations were not being met,
Yes.
even though they were unnamed expectations. And unnamed
Yeah.
expectations are unfair to your partner because
100%.
they are not mind readers. They cannot tell what's going on. And even when they take a wild guess, even if they
Yeah.
guess right,
You're right.
they're still trying to fill in the blanks, and that's something that we both learned on this journey,
Still learning.
and we're still learning.
Yeah.
We're still struggling. We're
Yeah.
doing, we do better at times, of course,
Yes.
but like going through some different things for us along the way have helped us. We did couples counseling,
Yeah.
and well, and we did, a class together through
Right.
church, combining those tools.
Yeah.
Combining the tools, I think, is the key. And again, that goes back to the beginning of why doesn't the church, society, whoever, fill in the blank of where your tribe is, why doesn't anybody talk about, hey, yes, we want you to be happy in this new marriage.
Sure.
Your first marriage ended for whatever reason. You screwed up, they screwed up, neither of you screwed up, you grew apart, whatever the reasons might be, and it ended. And now you've moved past that, and now you want to re enter into that thing that has hurt you so much. You would think that society as a whole would have more tools to help us in that scenario because it is so prevalent. Divorce is so high,
Yeah.
remarriage is high, and then again, going back to the divorce rates among those who have been remarried
Yeah.
are even higher, and I think it's because, there's probably a couple reasons, and I'm no scientist or I don't have the numbers, but some of it is you don't fix what was broken the first time.
True.
You don't address yourself, which we talked about, both of us waited significant amount of time after our separations before we even thought about dating somebody. But 2, even if you have dealt with your stuff, you're not always in the right place. You're not always doing the right things. You don't always still have the right tools to be successful.
Yeah. Well, I also think in terms of counseling and our church marriage program, I think that some people see asking for help as a sign the marriage is failing.
Yeah, I do. I used to feel that way.
So, how do you see it now looking back?
So now, and I will say full transparency. I've always been the self-fix person. I try to fix it myself. And
Sure.
I've learned for myself that is not the way to do it. There are some things you can do on your own, but knowing when you need help is a big step in the right direction. So I think getting the expertise from somebody who can help you is a good thing. I think it's using they're all tools. And I think getting yourself out of the way is the hard part because it all comes down to typically ego. I can fix this. I broke it, I can fix it. Well, sometimes you can't. You don't have the toolkit, you don't have the skill set.
Yeah.
So you have to do that. But I will say this, you know, I tried therapy one on one too, and it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
I didn't find a good fit for me in what I was really trying to get out of it. And that's still a struggle. Like I've been able to deal with some things and that I think are still there and are more deep rooted from my past, from growing up with an alcoholic father, all those kind of things. But, you know, I know I've dealt with a lot of the things and addressed them, but I'm sure there's still other things that I just don't even realize
Yeah.
are down there, and I need at some point, I have to go back in that journey to try to find the right person to help
Sure.
get through that, because, like, to contrast, when we went to couples counseling, our counselor was great. Like,
Yes, I agree.
she didn't have to I mean, I
She
think
pulled it out from us.
she pulled it
Nobody felt like they
right
were.
on target,
Yes, right.
right.
Yeah.
She really just helped move the conversation.
Yes. And we did the marriage counseling as we were in our Bible, as we were in our church marriage program at the same
Right.
time. We doubled up because we were definitely
We were in a bad place.
we were in a bad place. And I'm just trying, I mean, do we want to talk about the bad place? Like I can't even
Yeah, no, I think so. And again, the bad place came from
communication.
communication. It
Yeah,
came from unspoken expectation.
sure.
It came from
Listen, different backgrounds. I'm gonna say it. So I come from a whole different background than Mike. I was brought up to be like, I'm not giving you any money. When I turned 16 on my birthday, I was brought to the DMV. I woke up to put some clothes on. I went to the DMV and then I went to Cross Gates Mall in Albany and I had to get a job. And so I was brought up with, and my dad said, you will never ask me for money again. And I never did. And so I was brought up, right or wrong, that like, listen, as well as like, you either go to college, you go into the military, or you get the fuck out. I mean, now all of this has changed, but like my views on all of this has changed.
right.
Obviously, like
And there's some of that we've talked about this
yeah,
many times. Like there's some of that that is good
yes,
because some of that has given you the drive to do things, to succeed, to overcome, but it's also hindered you in areas where you never asked for help.
right.
Like, that's been a struggle for you
But to
is
go back to like why we needed marriage
right.
counseling, so I have this background,
And
this
mine different.
and Mike's is completely different, and we have, I have a stepson and a daughter and a stepdaughter, and I had this background of how it should be. But again, I forgot that Mike and I made a decision at the beginning and I overstepped 100% what we said. We're like, I'm going to raise my kids the way I want to raise my kids, and you're going to raise your daughter the way you want to raise your daughter. And you're going to take a back seat. You
And
can offer me
yeah.
advice, but it's going to come down to me. And I feel like I, I not let you down, but I let you down with like, I didn't follow that.
But you also got thrown a little bit of well, we both got thrown a bit of a boomerang. We did not expect,
True.
proverbially and literally, when Joel has to come back to live with us,
True.
which was unexpected.
True.
Once, Joel was not he had already moved out when we got married. He
Yeah.
was living in Texas, and so then my daughter, who's older, was living with us. Then she moved out
Right.
through not great circumstances, but,
True.
we've dealt with that in the long run. But at that point, we thought we were just dealing with one child who was actually a child
Yeah.
and getting her through middle school, high school, and then onto her path, right? That was where our mindset was, I think, for both of us. And then
Yeah.
when things happened that Joel needed to move back in with us, because of his, he'd made some mistakes
Circumstances.
and needed help.
Yeah.
And we made that decision together. However, again, the underlying
Expectations.
expectations, right, were not
Yes.
always clear.
And I think you have a set of expectations. I had a set of expectations, and we weren't communicating
Right,
those
right.
for sure.
And then dealing with past hurts for you that were being triggered by
Yes.
some of the scenarios that
Yeah,
were
that's
happening,
true.
you know.
And again, goes back to if you have mental health,
Yes.
blended health, like if you are blended family, you have got to keep up. If you have mental health, got to keep up with
Yes.
your meds and therapy.
Right. And if you aren't currently in therapy, you might need to consider it
100%.
because there is a lot that's going to be thrown at you
Oh my gosh.
that you,
Yes.
again, because again, this is the crazy part. Nobody talks about what it's like.
Babe, what about like you're not just kids, you're not just blending your kids. You're blending like holiday
Oh yeah.
traditions, in-laws, exes, finances, our parenting styles, which we talked about. Which of those was the hardest collision for us?
Some things were both easy and hard.
Yeah,
So we obviously, we moved further away from where I used to live.
right,
We were an hour away from where my mom lived, which was literally 5 minutes down the road
right.
before I moved.
True.
Your family was close by. So the natural transition was a lot of our holidays and things focused around, your family or extended family. And that was easy because honestly, for me, like your family took me in from the get-go. I was part of the family.
They love you
They never felt like I was
from the
an
jump.
outsider. And as much as I think my mom takes a while to warm up. And I think she's also not as clear to read sometimes.
Yeah,
So while I think she loved you, there was still this, I don't know if it was a fear in her or a thought in her or what, like, and parent, we talked about a parent is always a parent. So she's worried. What am I doing? Am I making a mistake? Am I,
right.
that your parents want you to be happy, right? And I
Yeah,
think that's the hard part. And again, I think because we were so much further away, she didn't get to see us interact
yeah,
under a normal circus. Like your
sure.
parents, I mean, we were hanging out, having dinner, doing things, your family, so they saw us interacting.
Yeah.
They saw how we were and so it was a lot clearer.
And I want to preface that, like, the reason why you came closer to me was because my child was in a school district.
Yeah.
My divorce decree said that I needed to stay in that district.
Yep.
And like, I mean, it was just a right fit for her
Oh, it
with
was
her needs.
no, 100% it was. And honestly, for me, it
That's true.
made it
You're
made more sense. I mean, I work in Pittsburgh
right.
and I was commuting 90 minutes one way, 3 hours a day spent, just commuting. And it was wearing on me at that point. I was fortunate to be working from home when my divorce went down because at that point my kids were 19 and 17, I think, or
Yeah.
18 and 16, somewhere in that range. I still had to deal with a lot of the things of an older kid that needed things.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was able to be at home during that time, and that saved me a lot of wear and tear mentally and physically. But then I had to go back into the office, and then
Right.
that shifted. You're back into that. Fortunately, at that point, kids are adults, self sufficient, and you just kind of get into a rhythm. But then, when we started talking about marriage, I knew Sarah needed to stay in the school district.
Sure.
From where we live now to work is
Yeah.
like 12 miles.
Straight shot.
Right. Easy shot. It makes my life so much easier
Sure.
living where we do now,
Sure.
working in the city. So I think that was a no-brainer regardless of the divorce decree and all the things.
I was gonna say, but to go back to the question, I
Yeah,
think that's the hardest part.
it has. The distance has been hard because my mom and my brother lives even further away.
Sure. Well,
So
and from my side, like, when I think about blended families, right? Extended
yeah,
families, like my family, we have like, I'm just thinking we center a lot of the stuff around my nephew and his wife.
sure.
So extended family, like we all are in each other's business. Like we are connected.
Yeah.
Like, I'm friends with my nephew's mother-in-law.
Right.
You know what I like?
Right.
My ex-husband comes to things, his mom. So for me, I would agree. I think that part, like, we've never really blended. Like, your
Right.
family has never, like,
Right. So having
eh,
my family together with your family,
never.
big whole thing.
And we're like 8 years in.
Right.
So I think that is the thing I would say for me that I'm like, man, that's the hardest is that I'm used to that.
Right.
And we don't have that.
And ironically, even though my family lived close together in my first marriage, like my ex's mom and dad lived close, my mom lived close. We still there were some things that we did together, but we still didn't have a completely blended
Yeah.
holiday. So it's for me, that wasn't that difficult.
Okay. See, and I'm like, oh,
Right.
I'm so used to everybody being
Right.
together
Yeah.
for like birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like East, like everything.
Right.
That's just how we grew up. Family was the most important. Not that I'm saying it's not for you.
Right.
It's just that like
It's a different
it's
outlook.
we're Italian
Yeah.
American. So it's like, yeah, it's just a different an outlook is a great way to saying, how about, I just quickly mentioned my ex-husband that we celebrate Father's Day. Sometimes we celebrate birthdays. Sarah is born a day before Mike. So we share birthdays together. I mean, this is like so unusual for blended families because we're not only blending like yours and mine, but we're also have
There's
Sarah's dad. How
how did
did
I
you
prepare?
process it? Like you are friends with your ex-husband.
So well, we talked about it. So again, that was at least one of the communication things we did have early. Because I was like, okay, I don't, the only experience I had had with divorce and kids had
Right.
been pretty ugly scenarios
Sure. I think
where
that's normal.
one is,
Yeah.
poisoning the child against the other and everything's difficult. And so
Right.
when we started dating and just saw the interaction between you and Rob
Sure.
I'm like, okay, you guys are at least friendly, and then we
Sure.
talk. And I also think I was going to go to that at one point, but your co-parenting strategy has to be very clear. And I would say that was the one thing that was extremely clear communication wise
With
with
Robin.
us, with
Yes.
me, you, and then Rob,
Yes.
because it was going to be pivotal in what was going to be happening for the next 8 years,
And still goes.
and is still going on.
And still
Right?
goes to this day,
Right.
today. Well, and I think we all had clear expectations, right? Like, I was driving the ship. Rob knew that, you knew
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Like, regardless, Rob was Sarah's dad, always will be.
Yes.
You were her stepdad. You're Mike.
And
She
I
does,
knew that. Yeah.
and so I think you're right. I think there was clear there was clear, like, okay, this is how this is gonna
We
work.
had delineated roles,
Right.
and I knew that basically the way I looked at, because I think a new husband, a new wife could come into the picture when there's a good co-parenting situation and probably feel threatened.
Yes.
So they could feel threatened because of that relationship. And I
Yeah.
think with the understanding that we had, your ex for a reason,
Yes.
right? And we talked about that up front. It was like,
Yes.
look, I have this relationship with my ex-husband.
Sure.
I have no desire, no matter what his girlfriend might think or whatever,
Right,
that
because that was a thing
right,
at
that
the
was a
beginning.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no desire to be with him. There's a long list of reasons why we're not husband and wife anymore.
Yeah.
So that was clear, right? So I wasn't threatened by there's some longing to put it back together,
Sure.
right? So I knew that up front. So and I'm not the jealous type. I knew you loved me, I loved you, and
Sure.
I knew that was the center of it. So
Yeah.
when I looked at that, who am I to say, well, I'm not going to have this relationship with your ex-husband who hurt
Right.
you. If you can, and you were
Yes.
the one that was hurt, then I should be able to. And ultimately, we looked at it, and I looked at it as this is what's best for Sarah because she needed the support of her dad.
Yeah.
She needed the support of her mom,
Yeah.
and she needed me filling in the gap
Yes.
between when there were other things
Yes.
to do along the way.
I think so many step parents try to come in and fucking be sorry, not fucking, but try to be parents immediately.
Mhm.
Like, I'm your dad, I'm your mom. And
Right.
I think you did such a great job with that. You and I think saying filling in the gaps, that's such
Yeah.
a great way to put it because, I think you're right. Like, I know with some of Rob is my ex-husband. Some of Rob's girlfriends in the past, they like were threatened and thought like this can't be the way. And I know that we are not the norm in terms of co-parents.
Right.
But I will say it's such a great trio. I mean,
Yes.
you and Rob have like joined together a couple of times. Like Rob has been so appreciative of what you've done with
Well,
Sarah.
and I think that's the key too, is not only did we talk about it, but I know you had spoken with Rob,
Right.
and Rob saw my role as well.
Yes.
And Rob knew I wasn't trying to take his position. I
Yes.
wasn't trying to be Sarah's dad.
Right.
I knew that, but I was gonna treat her like my own and do whatever I could for her, but Rob knew that I wasn't trying to take his position. But I also, in the scenario, Rob didn't live next door,
That's true.
right? So
And
Rob
I had
lives
full custody.
you have full custody, Rob lives further away,
Right.
and
That's
he
true.
can't be in the day-to-day. He can't run her to play
Right.
practice. He
Right.
can't, do
Right.
those kinda things.
He can't braid her hair.
Right. So, yeah, he's not there in the morning, but
Neither
she's
can I.
getting ready for school. There were those things where for me, my parenting style
Yeah.
entire life has been I wanna raise good kids, but
Yes.
I want to, whatever is within my power to do to help them succeed,
Yeah.
what I want to do. Sometimes that can get misguided
Sure.
and I have to check it, and that's where you come in to help
Sure.
me see where I'm going in a wrong direction because of my desire for a successful outcome. But I think, in the long run, it was just seeing that you had a good relationship with your ex-husband and you were okay with that, which means I should be okay with that.
Yeah.
And because of that, we were able to get to the point of, like you said, we've had Father's Day together at our home. And
Yeah.
I know for Sarah, that was a huge thing.
Right.
That was huge. She so appreciated being able to do that. We've done a couple of holidays where we've had everybody together.
Because again, I think coming from an Italian American background, and obviously that's what Sarah grew up with, everybody was at the table.
Yes.
Like everybody was at the table. Everybody. And that's just,
Yeah, and divorce is
yeah,
hard. Divorce is hard on
kids.
it's hard on the people going through the divorce,
Yep.
obviously the husband and wife, the couple.
Sure.
It's hard on everyone, and there's anything that we can do to make that scenario, because I can't even imagine, like, if I hadn't been able to get along with Rob and I had fought tooth and nail with that, like, where would that have put us in our marriage and in the success that we saw through middle school and high school? Like, I can't even imagine what that would have looked like.
Can't either because honestly,
It
that
was a
would have,
struggle as it was, right?
I'm just thinking like Sarah would have known that struggle.
Yes, absolutely. Because kids are not stupid.
Right. And that
They pick up on a lot of
it just
different things.
really would have been problem. I mean, like,
Yeah,
what is the biggest mistake you see blended families make that you have either made yourselves or consciously avoided?
communication.
Yeah.
Just not speaking your mind.
Yeah.
And again, for me, that's something that I've had to unlearn
Well,
anyway, because it came out of my first marriage
I was
where
going to say, right? It's communicating. I'm sorry to interrupt, but communicating and knowing that the person on the other side is going to listen
right,
and not take offense to
right,
it,
not judge,
not
just immediately
judge.
judge what you're saying. And that has been a learning experience for me to be able to do that and to be able to express my feelings if I'm frustrated with a situation, if I disagree with a situation, if I agree with a situation.
Sure.
You have to learn, and I have learned that like you don't, when I bring something to you genuinely, you're not judging me.
No.
You're not, but that took time. And it still is taking time because it's
Sure.
still hard because deep
You're just
down,
not used to that.
I'm not used to it. And, you get so used to the idea of rejection
Yeah.
that nobody likes to be rejected.
Right.
So you do anything you can to protect yourself from rejection. So it's been a big unlearning process,
Yeah.
and it's still ongoing, and it's still, it's a journey.
What about boundaries? What boundaries did you have to set with each other, like with kids, with extended family that felt uncomfortable but saved you?
Trying to think about what that might
Boundaries.
look like with boundaries, because I'm not good with boundaries. But
This is true.
it is. I'm not.
You are
I'm
terrible at boundaries. I would say, I mean, for me, like, again, Italian, like, my families were all in each other's business. And I think for me, there were a lot of times, especially with my father, that I'd have to be like, listen, dude, like, he'd be like, do you want me to talk to Mike? And I'd be like, no, like, you should not be getting involved. And so for me, I would say for boundaries, as uncomfortable it was, and how we would just have that kind of
Yeah,
relationship I did with my parents, like, yeah, that was I would have to be like, do not mention anything. But
right.
yeah, you don't have good
I
balance.
don't
You have
have that,
no
and in all
boundary
honesty,
skill.
we've talked about that recently because I forget what to say. You like, oh, my dad wanted to say, and I was like, I honestly, for me, I've always been one. I would rather hear those things, even if I don't necessarily agree with them. I would still rather hear them, and I respected your dad enough
Yeah.
that I wouldn't have taken it in a negative way.
So here's
But
what I would say. If you are listening to this and you are in a blended or you're thinking you're in the midst of dating, boundaries are key. Mike's not good at them. I had to with my parents. Setting boundaries with your kids, setting boundaries with your parents, setting boundaries with each other, I think
yes,
are extremely important. I think that boundaries are an act of love.
yes. Well, I think in the number one boundary is that the most important thing
Is your
for you.
relationship. Yeah.
If you set that boundary first, all the
Yes.
others
Will fall
are
into
are
place.
are below that, right?
I
As long
agreed.
as that's the number one boundary, that you are the most important thing and that is what needs the most attention, then you're set up for at least some level of success because that is the most important thing. Like,
Sure.
that is, regardless of your faith background or not faith background, but like for us, as we see in our Christian faith, that is where we are supposed to be. God is our first relationship,
Yep.
and we guard that first, and we are the second relationship. And we honor that, together. And I think
Yeah.
that helps even when the other boundaries maybe are misaligned
Yeah.
or not there at all or not spoken, you at least know I got your back, you've got my back. Deep down inside, we might be fighting right now, but deep down inside, we know we are each other's best ally in the fight that we're in, right?
Yeah.
This fight of life, because nobody else besides God is going to be on our side as consistently as our spouse is supposed to be.
What about like these are some of these questions I'm going to talk about are like the hard questions. Were there times, and I know I'm thinking of one, but were there times the kids, any of them, made you question the relationship? Like, how do you navigate loving your spouse while also feeling the tension their kids create?
Yeah. I feel like I know that there have been times with both, well, probably all three, where the tension has been hard.
Yeah.
And it's been different scenarios at different times where something would go, like, just so off the rails.
And you're having to defend your spouse, and then there's, like, tension.
Well, you're defending your spouse or you're defending your kid,
Yeah,
to your spouse
right.
because of
True,
the other boundaries. And
true.
so it's like I feel like there've been some scenarios that have occurred
Yeah,
without digging into specifics. Like,
sure.
it's there are definitely times where I remember specifically, and I don't even remember what was going on, and I had to have been around one of the kids where I remember you threw out, and you didn't mean it, but you didn't know the words to say, but you threw out the D word at
Yeah,
one point, and it was like, crap.
yeah,
Is this really where are we really heading there? Are we really bringing that in? Because we had talked about,
yeah.
I mean, we've always jokingly said it's a murder suicide, but we don't ever want to do this again. And when we did finally, and that took a while
It did
to
because,
to
like, the
talk through it.
tension
It was high,
so like, your house is supposed to be your sanctuary,
right? And we
and
have not had that.
we did not have that.
I don't know that we've. to this day, I don't know that we've ever had that because we've always had someone else in the house, right?
Well,
We
Sarah's now an adult, but
She's an
yes.
adult. I mean, regardless, adult, child, whatever, there's
Yeah,
always somebody else in the house. There was, we started off with both daughters.
right.
Then we had one daughter. Then we had daughter,
Yes.
son. Then we had daughter, mother-in-law, right?
Well, daughter, mother-in-law, son,
Right. Oh,
and
that's
then
right. We had all three at
we
once.
had all 3,
Yes.
and then we have
Then we had mother-in-law, daughter.
daughter, and now we just
Now
have
we just
daughter.
have daughter. And I mean, but again, all through all of that, like we joke,
Yeah.
we hide in our cave, basement bedroom because it's our sanctuary. That is our only true sanctuary, and it's not the greatest sanctuary because everybody's walking on our heads.
I think what I would say is to go back is especially like if your kids are adults, have conversations.
Yeah.
Sit down and have the hard conversations.
Yes.
And don't scream. Like
No.
I think it's having those conversations is so important because life is fucking short. And if
Yes.
you don't have those conversations,
Lose
you lose
years.
years.
Years. Yes, and I think that too is the conversation that should have been had when we decided to get married. This is my, this is what I feel is going to be the best for me, to my kids. I needed to tell them that you were the person that was going to complete. That was what I was seeing.
Oh, I told Sarah that.
Right. And I don't know that I had that full on conversation. Like,
Yeah,
I knew I loved you. I
sure.
saw us together, but I don't know that I had the conversation that you were the most
You
important.
completed me.
Like,
You're the most
as
important thing.
much as their mother was above them when we were
Right.
married, and ultimately their mother is still above them, even though we don't have a relationship,
Right.
right? And they don't have a relationship with her, but
Right.
technically she's still above them when it comes to anything that were to go on. But you are above them because you are my spouse. We have been knit together through our vows of marriage and what we have decided to do. That is the most important thing, and I don't know that we had a good conversation around that, so I think that is very true. That I think, if you could underline this, communication is the number one thing I think you need for a successful marriage, period.
Also think, I know this seems really cheesy, but love languages for your kids.
Yeah,
I think
understanding that.
like understanding both your kids and your spouse's kids. Like I'll give you for instance, like before we got married, Sarah said to me, Mike has never said I love you.
Right,
And that like broke my heart.
right.
But here's the thing, Mike, his
I don't
his
have
you have
communication.
no communication and
Right.
your like way to do love language
I
is
express
acts
it
of
right,
service.
I express love best through acts of
And I had to explain that to Sarah, and I had to explain it to you, and I think
yeah,
moving forward, if I were to give somebody advice, I would be like, know your partner's love languages and know the kids' love languages because that is going to make life so much easier.
yes. Yeah, it
Tru-
for sure, because I didn't even realize
Yeah,
I had never told Sarah
right.
verbally that I love
Verbally,
her, right? I
right.
didn't I did, I loved her.
Sure.
I mean, I had to if I were gonna go for me at least, I knew going in, if
Right.
I were going to marry you, I was marrying your child,
Right.
and I have to love them as my child, and I
Yeah.
knew that, and even in my vows, I talked about that,
Yeah.
right?
We
That
both
we
did.
both did,
Yeah.
but I hadn't expressed that, and it honestly, when you told me, it broke my heart that I had done that, but I didn't realize it because I'm such a horrible communicator.
Right.
Really is true. I
That's
am
all
not
right.
good at it.
I still love you. All right. One of the things that I thought we would talk about too is the idea of money because I feel like when you think about the landmines in a blended family, faith and money, I bet are probably the top two, and how you discipline and raise your kids. How did we figure, well, like, I think, since you're the kind of the lead of our money, like, let's talk about how it works.
Right, which was interesting because I think both of us coming out of our previous marriage, our spouses had been the ones we were the breadwinners, but they did the books.
That's so true. Right.
And we were both kind of blissfully in the dark sometimes about how our money was being spent at times.
True.
Like, I think we both knew it, but we didn't
Know it.
really dig into it.
Yeah.
So
We didn't question it.
right, we didn't question it.
Right.
Then that led to some bad scenarios on both sides. So,
Yeah.
coming in, we had talked very openly about, I had debt coming out of my divorce.
Right. I had a bankruptcy.
You
I had
see,
no debt, but like a
right,
debt.
right. And so we talked about what we were gonna do.
Sure.
And again, the good thing is we had that we this was a conversation we did have. We both
Yeah.
we both agreed on how to and not to spend money.
Yeah.
Neither of us wanted to be frivolous. We both wanted to not have a debt over our head,
Right.
aside from like a home,
Sure.
car at times. But we didn't want to have like credit card debt. We didn't want to have that kind of debt hanging over us and limiting us.
We,
We were both on the same page of
yeah.
like how we wanted to do that. And then together we made the decision that I was going to be the bookkeeper for
Sure.
both of us.
Yes.
But it's an open book. I mean, there's no like we don't hide anything.
Well, and I think one of the things I want to say, because I know that there are some couples who keep their money separate.
Right.
We are not those
We did not
people.
do that. No, right away we had
When we got married,
a
that
joint
was
account.
joint account.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a joint account. We had, again, all the backlog was laid on the table. We knew what there was. We had, credit card debt. We had our country home that we didn't want that I
Right.
won in the divorce. So we had a lot of extra things, but we both knew that
We had a goal.
we had a goal to be out of
We
debt.
had a goal. Yes.
And we had a goal to be financially stable enough to help when there were opportunities to help
Well,
other people and to give. We wanted to be able to give
sure.
faithfully to our church and to other organizations. So, we started off, in a place where we both were on the same page.
Yeah.
And that helped us so that again, that was an area where we really did communicate well and we stuck to what we said. And I
Well,
think that helped us tremendously.
absolutely. I think that communication. Well, again, I feel like money is a major landmine. So we knew out the gate we need to be on the same page with that. We knew that, you had debt lingering over you and we both were going to slay this debt dragon and
Yep.
we did. But then I was an entrepreneur and I was not forthcoming with how my businesses were
Right.
running. Mike did not handle the money and we got in a spot where thank God we had money saved because we needed it for when I was closing my businesses.
And that was a hard time for, like, well, it was twofold because I believe there were blessings and curses in that whole thing.
100%. Yes.
Because one, there was the downside was the communication had broken down. You
Yes.
didn't feel like you could share with me what was going on,
Yes.
for whatever reason.
Right. The finance thing
The
just is a
finance.
weird yes.
Right, and I think that goes back to that independence that you
Yeah,
had and
for
not
sure.
wanting to ask for help. On the flip side of that, we had been blessed to have saved money.
Yes.
And so when the time came, we looked at what we needed to close your business out and close out the debts.
Yes.
We had the money to pay that
Yeah.
off and not be destitute. We still had some money in the bank, but it also was an opportunity at that time from a faith perspective that God
Yes.
was showing me that my reliance had become more on the numbers in the bank account than the faithfulness of God.
Yeah.
And, I was scheming, so to speak, planning like, "Oh, in a few years, we pay off the car that we have now,
Right. Right.
and then I buy another car, and heck, maybe we even just buy that outright with cash because we have
Sure.
the money to do that." And it was just it took a while when that happened to work through it as God was showing me some things in myself that and I think it comes from growing up poor,
Yeah.
not having a lot of things that, you want that security. But ultimately for us, the security in God is more important than the security in the bank account.
Well, I would say, like, I mean, when we've both have had these like truly testing times with our relationship, like, and I think we both can answer this, like, how does your faith, what does it give you during these hard seasons that nothing else could?
Yeah. Our leaning on God for us is a true source of strength. Like
Yes.
we find our solace, whether it be together before God, alone before God,
Yeah.
congregationally before God when we're in
Yes.
church together. One of the things that we have always done is we go to church together, we worship together, we
Yeah.
sit together. Some of the things that we've struggled with from a faith perspective is We don't always do those things at home together,
True.
but we've found areas where we can continue that to evolve that part of our relationship where
So
we talk about different things in our faith walk.
So if you're like this resonates with you, one of the things that Mike is referring to is we listen to a podcast, Leaders Cut by Preston Morrison. Highly recommend it. And so Mike and I will listen to it separately and then have conversations about it, about like what we heard in the message. So that's just like one way. Let's just say, like Mike said, we've done it where we've tried to read passages together, do Bible studies together, and we just don't feel like spiritually filled when we
Right.
do that.
I think it's just because it hasn't been a good practice for us. So
Yeah.
we're not in that zone of doing that
Right.
together, but I still think it's valuable. We just have to learn to get there, but taking some steps. So we often will talk about what did we hear in our Sunday teaching at church?
Yeah.
What
Mhm.
spoke to you? What spoke to me? Here's what, I saw, what you saw. What did you learn in your small group study? What did I learn in my small
Yeah.
group study? But here's what I've been seeing. And then also this other avenue with the podcast that we both listen to gives us opportunities to just dig into topics to give us that commonality of the background of faith
Or music.
and music.
I
Right.
think for sure, like, that's another way. I think what about for, like, couples who don't share our faith background? Like, what's the universal truth underneath our faith journey that can apply to everyone?
I think the universal truth is having grace
Yes.
for one another. Whether you're a believer or not,
Yes.
you have to have
So
grace
good, Mike.
for your spouse.
Grace for yourself
And
too,
well, yeah, and grace for yourself because that's a whole other.
because you are gonna mess up.
Absolutely.
Like,
You're gonna be your worst critic most of the time.
yes.
So, having grace for each other, having grace for yourself, and learning, don't get yourself out of the way.
Yeah.
Truly, I feel like, and it is a faith practice, but it doesn't have to be a faith practice, but like serving one another.
Yeah.
When you are serving each other, when you are more worried about what your spouse needs in the moment versus what you need, and they're doing the same thing for you, that is a beautiful relationship that's growing.
I love that.
And that's what we're called to do in faith,
Right.
but I feel like apart from faith, it's just a great practice
Yeah.
because you are putting your efforts into the person, your person.
Yeah.
Your spouse is your person.
Right.
We jokingly are like I would rather do something with my spouse
Yeah.
than with somebody else because we are each other's best friends. That's
Yeah.
just the way it is. And that's ultimately how it should be.
I was
You
gonna
should
say I'm good with that.
yeah, and you should have other friends, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Don't isolate, but
Right.
like, if you can't have those things in common, what kind of a relationship do you have?
Yeah.
I think that's been a plus for us all along is
Well,
that we've focused on that,
yes.
and we try to serve each other. Now,
Yeah.
going back to the love languages things, we often do it in our own imperfect ways. It may not be the way that the
The
other
other
person is
person wants to
receiving,
receive it. Yes.
but we are serving one another.
Yes. That's so true. Okay, like looking forward, that these next two questions. 8 years in, right?
Yep,
Woo, we did it. With kids getting older
yep.
and eventually,
Maybe moving house.
allegedly, all leaving, allegedly. Who are you two becoming now that the blending phase is shifting? What does your next chapter look like? Well, I'll start.
Okay.
So here's the thing. We laugh about this. We're actually in the car talking to you guys. Like, we don't, the next step could not be empty nesting.
Right.
I think what I thought it would be is like 8 years ago has completely changed 100%. I think I feel like we are 8 years in. I feel like spiritually we are stronger than we were together 8 years ago. We'll always have rough patches,
Yes.
but I feel like we're, we've, we know that we're going to have them
Yep.
and we know to lean on the Lord when we have them.
Yes.
Like,
100%.
what about you? What do you think?
So I think, we've talked about the same things. Like we can picture pretty much everyone in our life at some point maybe living with us
Right.
because we have an extra room. And I think having that open mind
Yeah.
helps us. When the time came, for example, a little over 2 years ago, your dad passes away,
Right.
and your mom is in a situation where she doesn't wanna live on her own even though she
Right.
could.
Yeah.
We had already had the conversation that if the time came, we would do that. We would
Yeah.
have your mom or my mom move in with us.
Like, and we joked around
And
about
we
it too.
but we had had that conversation.
Yes. So it was
So when the
easy.
reality came, it was much easier to make that decision
Yes.
without turmoil or distraught thoughts or whatever. Was
Yeah.
We had already done that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's being open to just say, "I don't know
Yeah.
what the next chapter is," I think is good.
I know. I'm just like, what does our next chapter look like?
Well, so for me, I'm 55. I'm in the last, hopefully, decade of my career,
Right.
shooting to retire by 65, maybe 67, depending on how things look. 65 is the goal, right? But hopefully, retiring. But what does retirement look like?
Right.
We don't even know what that looks like.
Right. So
I think it's the blessing we have is that we are not waiting to retire to do the things we want to enjoy.
true.
We bought a used travel trailer last year, and we're
True.
gonna go adult camping.
Yeah.
We're not gonna sleep on the ground.
That's
We're gonna go, enjoy the outdoors, which we both have enjoyed
yes.
since we've met.
And it brings us closer to ourselves, closer to God.
Right.
Yes. All the things.
And gets us away from home, which
Yes.
isn't always our shelter. So it gets us to get away and do
Yeah.
something different.
You're right.
And even in that, there are challenges that come, and
We
we
do it
learn.
together.
We'll
Yeah.
do it together,
Yeah.
and we'll have a good time. And I think learning through that, whether is that our next chapter, like we see it, there's another couple we know that retired, and that is their life. They're
Yeah.
pulling a trailer and going all over the place, and maybe that's what we do. Maybe we find out over the next couple years, maybe this isn't what we do.
Yeah. We don't know.
Maybe our dog drives us insane that we made the mistake of getting, and
Oh
we both
my
go crazy, which
gosh.
is
Freaking
fine.
hilarious.
But, I think we're just trying to take it as it comes,
Yeah.
not making because we both, I think, in our past have made the long-term plans, and
Yes.
those don't come to
Never.
fruition. What's the line? You wanna hear God laugh? Make a plan? Like, you know, y you make your plans, God's like, "I've got a whole different plan."
Right.
Like, when I got married very young at
Yeah.
21, had kids by the time I was 24, my thought was my first wife and I would be empty nesters by the time we were 50.
Wow.
And
Think about that.
right, and then quote unquote
Shit.
living our life, right? That obviously went out the window. You go through a divorce.
Right.
When we met, one of the many conversations we had was, I want to step into a relationship with somebody with a 10-year-old child,
Yeah.
because my kids were adults.
You'd envisioned your whatever, your elder years or
And as we both just explored our relationship,
yeah.
as we talked through it, as we prayed, I felt that this was where God had wanted us to
Thank
be.
God.
And we see the fruition of that because,
Yeah.
God is blessing the things in our life. And again, it's never going to be easy. If you think marriage is easy, you're in the wrong place. It's going to be hard. It is work. But if you work at it, it can be the best thing in your life.
Okay, so let's talk about this work. If we were sitting across from a couple, right,
Yep.
who was about to blend their families, what are three things, and we could each give the three things that they absolutely need to know what's going on? Like, what are the three
I
things?
mean, number one, communicate.
Okay.
Open communication. And if you are not at that point in your relationship yet, where you can openly communicate about everything, and I mean everything.
Yeah.
Like, we had those conversations early, which made me uncomfortable, not to be crude, but like, you were like, if you need to have sex, just tell me you need to have sex. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I've had too much rejection from that.
Yeah.
But you were like, but I need to know. And I'm like, you're right. You do need to know, because then I get frustrated. So
Right.
again, the conversation, open conversation about everything, having the rule that you can talk to me about anything and I will not get mad.
Yeah.
We will talk it out, we will work through it, and we will come through it together. Having that foundation, you have to have that.
Okay. Number two.
Expectations.
Yeah.
So clearly defining your expectations for what your
Ooh,
marriage, your home,
kids.
again, the money, the home, the kids, activities, what is all of that going to look like for you? And again, be open to change because what you think you have now may change.
Yeah. What's the last one?
Number 3, I would think is just putting all that into practice, never giving up. Just keep working. You've got to keep working.
Okay, I'm going to give my 3.
Okay.
The first one, don't go to bed angry. Do not go to bed angry. Do not go to bed not speaking to your spouse because it's just like, it's such a bad way to end things. Even if you're like, I'm exhausted, I want to go to bed, we'll fix this in the morning. No, fix it now. Or at least have the dialogue where you have more conversation, but don't leave the night.
Leave it in silence.
Don't leave it in silence. I
You
feel
may be still angry,
yes.
but at least express it. Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
I also think boundaries. Being upfront about your boundaries, setting boundaries, like you even said, you're like not very good at that. I think setting up boundaries, knowing what they are, don't like, don't be like, you know what? I made a new boundary today. No, like these are the boundaries. That's
Right.
it. And stick with it. Also think the third, my last one, and you mentioned it before, would just be grace, giving yourself grace, giving your spouse grace. I mean, let's face it, we are all imperfect people. We sometimes say things that we wish we could take back, and we're just coming to the other person with our own hurts and our own regrets and all the things. And I think if we know that, okay, this person is my person and they're saying things because of how they grew up or their experiences, we have to give them grace because of that.
Yeah.
And in return, we know, you know what? We're going to screw up. We're going to say shit that we probably shouldn't, but they're going to give us that same grace.
Right. The underlying thought has to be at all times, no matter what is being said, is that they love me and they're trying to convey something and they may not have the right words.
Yes.
And if you can get to that point, I think it's a big win because it's like when the one time I mentioned, like you threw out the D word at one point.
Yeah.
It wasn't because you were really thinking about divorce.
Right.
At that
It's
moment,
true.
you just couldn't figure out what you were trying to
I
say.
couldn't articulate it.
Right.
And I just knew I could not keep up the way that we were.
Right.
And that's really what I should have said, but I couldn't articulate that. But babe, it's been 8 years. I love you.
I love you too.
And I think that, I'm hoping that this episode helps people who are maybe currently in blended families,
Thinking about being a blended family.
thinking about being like truly,
Because that's, going back to the basis, like
yeah,
remarriage is such, especially in the faith community, is
yeah,
a very prevalent thing, but again, not talked about. And I don't
right.
know if that comes from the negative viewpoint of divorce, which again, I get that.
I get
Divorce
it too,
isn't
but
the plan,
there's a
but it's the
reality.
reality.
Yeah,
And things happen and we are still people. And
right,
we as a people of faith
right,
in the Christian church need to figure out how to help people who are doing these things.
right.
How you're making a new family, you're blending a family, you're doing the things that you feel called to do. How can we help you? And
Yeah,
it's sometimes not the same help that someone in their first marriage needs
yeah.
because there are other things that come into play, past hurts, different things,
So,
all the stuff from your previous marriages come into your new marriage.
yes,
And if you're not dealing with them,
yes.
then it's going to be a barrier. So I hope and pray that there will be more things available for people who are going down this path that we are. If we had had the opportunity to sit down with somebody and
Yeah,
maybe give us some warnings,
yeah,
you know, it would have been tremendous
I
because
agree. We're doing that right now.
we're trying to give that advice to
Yeah,
others from what we have learned and from the struggles
absolutely.
that we've gone through.
So thank you guys for listening. And yeah, this is our special episode on our 8th anniversary. Okay, that is a wrap on today's episode of Grownish Women. And honestly, I could have kept going. If something you heard today made you laugh, made you cry, or maybe made you text your best friend and say you have to listen to this, that's exactly why I created it. Do me a favor, if you're loving the show, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave a review. It takes like 2 minutes and it really means the world to me. It also helps other women in the messy middle find us. And trust me, they need the community just as much as we do. Come find me on Instagram, Grownish Women Podcast, and keep the conversation going because what we talk about here doesn't need to stop when the episode ends. I'll see you next Friday. Until then, be a little kinder to yourself. You're doing better than you think.